Today, in a Golden Mind series, we present to you Mitch Lowe, the co-founding executive of Netflix, former CEO of MoviePass, former president of RedBox, and author, a consultant, and an inspirational speaker. Welcome to the Golden Mind series, Mitch.
Thank you very much, Lavanya. It's really great to be here.
Thank you very much. We start with your latest book. The title has been so catchy, How I Turned Hollywood Upside Down with Netflix, RedBox, and MoviePass. Can you talk about your journey, please?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I grew up in the 1960s in California, in San Francisco. It was a booming time of music and movies. And so I just, from my very early ages, I was fascinated by television, by movies, by music. And of course, with Silicon Valley coming up after that with Hewlett-Packard and all the chip makers, I became a huge fan of technology. And so those two things came together, and I just found myself always looking for ways to watch new movies. Or remember, in those days, the only way you could watch a movie was going to the movie theater. And it just seemed, as a consumer, that there had to be other options. So I was always kind of looking for alternative ways to serve the customer.
So you have been one of the pioneers who have been working on metaverse. How do you think this will impact our future behaviors?
I think the metaverse is going to be almost as impactful as the internet. It's really a kind of a 3D or even a 4D perspective of what we do today on the internet, where you go to flat screens and you type in a search, or you start to look at streaming material on your laptop. The metaverse is all encompassing, and what it does, it allows you to interact real time with other people, whether it's introducing yourself to the director of a Netflix series, or meeting other fans, or shopping in a mall, in a metaverse mall, and talking to other customers about their experience with the product. So I think the metaverse, while still very much in its infancy, is going to kind of create a better experience, whether you're shopping or entertaining or game playing or interacting with other people, not only in where you live, but around the world.
These are tough times with tough leadership decisions everywhere. How do you think a leader can shape themselves during these times?
So it's really all about transparency within the company, transparency about performance, transparency about things that aren't going right. All those things need to start way before the problem occurs, because when the problem occurs, it's almost too late to make any changes that are meaningful.
I was just browsing through one of your interviews, and you've spoken a lot about content being the king, and how it can be customized to meet the needs of your customers, right? Like, we have found many leaders talking about how data has to be analyzed, can be transformed. How do you think that organizations can be equipped to monetize customizing content for the betterment?
I think to monetize content and to, stay ahead of your competition, you really need to listen to not only your customer, but you need to listen, and I mean really listen. I mean, keep it open-ended, have a whole diverse group of your customers talk about, what do they think about your product. But another important aspect is talking to the youngest people in your organization. I can't tell you how many times companies have learned things they never would learn by talking to the employee who it's their first job. They haven't learned to be politically correct.
So you are advising us to listen to the young. That's what you're saying, is it?
Absolutely. It's got to be their first job where they haven't learned to keep their mouth shut.
Yes, perfectly. Right. Coming on to how do you look at failure as a virtue?
I don't look at it as a virtue. And so not wanting to fail again is a great motivator.
Mhm.
And how you failed is, if you really dig into it and be honest, it's a great lesson to not do it again. At the same time, what you can't do is think that everything is, that lesson you learned is going to be exactly the same in the future.
So it can be called as failure can be character building. That's what you would say. Right?
It's definitely character building. Very, very much so.
You have talked about installing an innovation culture through the board. So what is your view? How do you think? Because the board is responsible for lots of decisions and how the company goes through, right? So going from the top, percolating down. So if you can help us with your views on it and your anecdotes, people who have met, right?
Yes, innovation really does start at the top, and innovation is one of the hardest places for the board to allocate enough resources, because it, like I said before, it often takes 5 years for that budget to pay off. And in fact, it may not pay off. It may be a total waste of money. So you've got to look at what happens to the company that doesn't innovate. And innovation is coming oftentimes, too often, from startups, where it should really, the innovation should be driven by the board of directors of successful companies who say, let's invest in new ideas and new products and new ways to deliver our product.
Can we talk about the Indian OTT scenario? Your response, you would have been a silent watcher on what's happening out here, right?
Yeah, well,
yes.
It's the Indian OTT market is a fascinating market, and one that is growing dramatically. Today, there's 120 million households in India that subscribe to one streaming service or another. And I think the number of subscriptions is in the 170 million. That's just the paid subscriptions. So that doesn't include AVOD services or advertising supported services. As every person in India knows, the Indian film industry is, I think, the biggest in the world. And so I think the future is very big there. I think as more and more services start to be provided, even niche services that are focusing on one of the main languages, but also on interests, specific interests, whether it be musicals, or whether it be murder mysteries or romance. I think what you're going to see is a kind of a replication, but in an Indian way, what has happened in North America, which is hundreds of different services that provide, serve all these different interests in streaming. So I think it's an exciting time to be in the OTT market in India, especially with its growth and the interest of the consumer.
Okay. Thank you. I think that summarizes our conversation, and very succinctly, and you've given us very crisp answers too. Thank you very much.